Hello, my lovelies. This is Annette of AnnetteLeonard.com, back again with Chronic Wellness. So, for those of you who tune in here routinely, you may remember that I shot a video last year about Evusheld. Evusheld is the FDA approved preventative, lab created monoclonal antibody therapy. There are a couple of different kinds of monoclonal antibody therapies. The first is the one that I'm going to be talking about, Evusheld. And the second, I'll just briefly mention, is the kind that is spun from the blood products or plasma of individuals who have COVID and is administered to other folks who get COVID in order to help speed their recovery. All right, so that's type 2. Type 1 is what I'm going to be talking about, which is Evusheld. And Evusheld is lab created. So it is built in a laboratory, and it is a protein that is meant to look like the proteins that our bodies naturally make when we have COVID. And then it gets injected into a body like mine to make it look like, to my body, I've had COVID, so that then a body can fight COVID more easily, or perhaps even not get COVID because the body's like, oh no, I've already had that, I don't need to get it again. So it's a method of prevention and protection. And the way that it has been administered is by injection. At the time that I've received it, it was 2 small vials. That's not true. Maybe it was even 4. And it was given as an injection, 2 injections in my backside. And then I had to wait about an hour to make sure that I wasn't having any allergic reaction. And it was recommended to be administered every 6 months to keep the protection up. And I was recommended to get this product because I take chemotherapy drugs. And for many of us who are highly immune compromised and highly immune suppressed, vaccines don't necessarily have the best effectiveness. So you may remember that I had this journey of testing the level of vaccine effectiveness in my blood and seeing that though I had had something like 5 vaccines at the time, there wasn't any detectable level of protection in my blood. So Evusheld was the answer, or so we thought. So like many of the vaccines, Evusheld was able to be put on the market because the FDA gave it Emergency Use Authorization, EUA. And at the very end of January, the FDA announced that they were pulling Evusheld's EUA. Wah, wah. And it's not because it has been proved unsafe or because people have been having horrible reactions or dire consequences such as that. However, it has been proved to not be effective against sort of the BA.12s and the BA.2s and the Omicron variants of SARS-2 COVID variants. So the research is proving that something like only 10% or less of current COVID variants are responsive to the Evusheld protection. And so for that reason, the FDA determined that it's not worth having that EUA protection. And so Evusheld is no longer being offered as a protective therapy, which for those of us for whom the vaccine is not a viable option means there's not a preventative treatment any longer that is available. So then that means the alternatives are post-viral treatments. So that's your Paxlovid and your Monopiravir. I can never remember the name of that one. Or being treated at an emergency room or an urgent care with the kind of monoclonal antibodies that were part B of those ones that I mentioned before. So again, post-viral treatments rather than preventative treatment methodologies, which as this virus continues to evolve, as we've seen these more recent variants being perhaps less deadly, is maybe not as big a deal. And certainly for people like myself who have lung disease, is not no threat and is just one less option available. However, learning that it wasn't really a protecting or a very protecting option, better to have that information and proceed with my eyes open than to think that I had broad spectrum coverage or something that really was offering greater protection than it now turns out it is. So that is an update from the field about the latest information I just recently read about FDA and Evusheld. So are you someone for whom your immune system is so suppressed that you're not able to process the vaccine? Have you had Evusheld in the past? What are you currently doing for COVID protection? Or is that not really a factor in your decision making these days? These are the things that I sit here wondering about. So sound off as ever. I really appreciate hearing from you. And until we're together again, thanks for being here and be well.